A couple of weeks ago, the Liberty Doll announced that she was accepting some questions for a possible Q&A video she intends on producing at some point in the future. And knowing that she is a very strong Pro 2A person, I decided to submit this question. I had intended on discussing it all along in this series because it's a good question for both gun rights advocates and gun control advocates to ask themselves. And so, I will commence in doing so here. Feel free to leave your thoughts and comments in the space below. Gun control folk, I get your concerns about violence against human life. I really do. And people like me do as well. It's just that we have different solutions towards addressing that problem than you would have. But the biggest problem that you have in assessing the extent of the problem and proposing solutions to it stems in the ignorance that you inflict upon yourselves. Now, by using that term ignorance, I'm not using it as a rude epithet or an insult. No, being a linguist, I'm using the term according to what it means, not knowing. If you don't own guns, shoot guns, or carry guns, tell me, how well can you know gun culture? It's history, the laws governing it, it's etiquette, stuff that we handle day after day. And more importantly, how can this ignorance possibly help you find solutions that both satisfy your needs and suit ours as well? You might say, no, we're not ignorant. We read articles, we post studies, we share the experience of veterans and police officers. Except your journalists also live outside of gun culture and share the same level of disinterest in gun culture that you have, and thus are afflicted with the same level of not knowing. Your academicians also live outside of gun culture and tend to exercise their intellectual abilities towards torturing statistics to try to make reality fit into their preconceived conclusions. Your veterans tend to be non-combatants, and those that have had encounters in a two-way firing range often tend to lose sight of the fact that their experiences in trying to control hostile territory in a foreign country might not be all that applicable to their fellow citizens in their own country during peacetime exercising a civil right. The police officers you tend to trot out are often political appointees who are towing the Democrat Party line, which has established itself as the party of gun prohibitionism. In other words, not the most knowledgeable nor most impartial of experts. And so you get lost in this recursive loop of misinformation and ignorance, which is why in nearly 20 years of watching gun control activism at work, I have not seen it mature in its arguments. The talking points that you share today are pretty much the same ones I was hearing back in the late 90s. My proposed solution: exercising some intellectual honesty, which involves accepting the possibility that you may not have all the facts, and exploring venues inside gun culture to see if your assumptions hold water. Like gun control activist Heidi Human, who decided to put herself through the paces of both buying a gun and getting a concealed carry permit and carrying a gun for about 30 days in the interest of seeing what it was like to be a good guy with a gun. Now, in my opinion, her experiment was a little bit too brief, but I cannot fault her for at least trying for the sort of experiences that most gun control activists don't bother to try to seek out. Now for my brothers in arms, what could I possibly find wrong with us? While we have the better side of the issue, with better arguments from law, history, statistics, and experience, sometimes we don't act like it. We've all experienced this at one point or another. We rebut a talking point with solid facts and sound logic, only to have them start dancing, moving the goalposts, changing the focus, or going straight for the penis comments. It's frustrating. It's almost as if they don't really want a dialogue. Either you agree with them or you get subjected to a furious exercise in slinging excrement. And this is the ought I have against my side. Sometimes we allow ourselves to get too easily dragged down to a baser level of discourse and wind up not really representing who we are and what we know. And my solution? Keep maintaining the high ground. Keep focusing on the issues and not so much the person. And that's something we also need to remember right here, that we are dealing with people. Frustrated people, misguided people, ignorant people, but people nonetheless, and are at least deserving of a modicum of respect. But most importantly, we need to keep living the sort of lifestyle that defies every caricature that they make of us. Because as we know, good living is the best revenge.